Hi, Tom from the Investor Centre. I'm going to be building a trading bot. Now, for this, you're going to need Claude code. And for the purposes of getting through this quite quickly, I'm actually going to be using the Sonnet version. It's a bit quicker, but you might want to use a more comprehensive version if you are looking to build something a bit more complicated or thorough. I've created a folder, and this actually has got my prompt in already, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you what the prompt kind of looks like from sort of start to finish. You can see it's quite comprehensive. I'm actually happy to send you this prompt. I'll give you details how to access this a bit later on in the video, and details will also be in the description. So I'm going to get the Claude to start building the bot. So with this, if you haven't already, I would recommend building or opening an account, trading account with API access. I personally use capital.com. It is very straightforward. So whilst that's loading, let me just open my capital.com account. I should have one open somewhere. Okay, so here you can see my demo/paper account. And it's very straightforward to get your API key. You can generate it here. Don't give the API key directly to Claude. It will usually reject it and ask you to create a new one. What it will ask you to do is to save the API key in a file somewhere. So the way I've built the prompt is to ask you questions. One of the main questions is, are you going to be looking at technical analysis or fundamental analysis? So technicals looks at the charts, if there's any patterns or signals that a asset is going to go up or down. Fundamental analysis looks at whether a stock or an asset is under or overvalued based on more sort of fundamental signals, like whether it's price per earnings or maybe sort of upcoming news or political events. So I'm going to try and keep to something pretty straightforward for this. So let's go with technical analysis. You can pick either, and what you're going to need is actually an idea. Let's go with trends following. You can basically come up with any theory you like. Let's go with swing. So swing trading just means that you're going to hold on to the position for a bit longer than a day. It can be a few days, could be a couple of weeks. So rushing this a bit, I'd recommend spend a bit more time to come up with your own strategy. Probably cover something beforehand. Interestingly, I did get Gemini to come up with a strategy for it to be integrated into Claude. Didn't actually do too well. But for this, I'm going to look at, let's go with Forex. So it's the benefit of Forex, it's open 24 hours a day, 5 days a week, whereas stocks and indices will have opening and closing times during the week, depending on where they're listed. So the Euro and USD has the most volume. So let's go with that. And what you'll find is you'll get typically the lowest spreads on that pair, and it's now asking whether we want to go long, short, or both directions. So it's asking what leverage we want, and so basically, depending on the asset in the UK, you can have different leverage amounts. So effectively, Forex, you get 30-1 on major pairs. And then with stocks, you get 5-1. Certain commodities, it's vary between 10 or 20-1. So the idea is the more volatile a certain asset would be, such as the stock's going to move far more because it's will just typically have more volatility. They offer less leverage. So I'm actually testing this prompt out for the first time. The prompt was based on a previous bot I built, and I basically asked it to list all the bugs that we had. So we had I think it was about 16 odd bugs that we found. So I wanted to integrate that with the prompt, so hopefully we don't run into the same issues. Yeah, so the previous one it was a bit more complicated. It used various API keys and it was based on mostly news trading. We had some integrations. I think we had a NASA API key, interestingly, and we also got an API key that looked at sort of macroeconomic data. There's some company in the US, and the idea was to basically find almost like black swan events where they're quite infrequent, but they do they typically provide quite a big trading opportunity. So it might mean that this one thing that might happen once a year, but there's lots of them. Typically means that these markets are affected. Okay, I'm just going to pause now until I've sort of answered these questions, and I will add the remainder of the prompts at the end. I had to generate the API key and save it into a text file. And this basically means that Claude can access it and test. Okay, so what you have to do is once you've created your account with your broker, you have an API key, and you want to save this onto a text file and save it onto the project where you're working. What it will generally ask you is your email address associated with the account and then the password. So I'll save this into a text file and provide Claude with access to it so it can test. We can access this. Okay, back again. Yeah, I had a couple of teething issues actually trying to generate this. I have basically, one of the issues was I typed in my email address incorrectly. So it's now connected. I've tested the connection using Python. Now, this is one of the things that it's probably going to ask you to download, and it just means it can execute commands on your behalf on your PC. So now we're actually, you can see here it's connected to the capital.com demo account. What I'm now doing is carrying out a backtest, and the idea behind a backtest is to test how your theory or your strategy would have worked over the last 12 months. So it would basically identify when it would have implemented a trade and when it would have exited the trade and what the profit or loss will be. So part of this, the issue with backtesting is you can do a backtest and Claude could generate a theory and rules that are super profitable in the last 12 months because it tailors the rules according to what happened in the market. The way I try and get around this is I basically do the same backtest, but between, say, 2 and 3 years ago. So it should be slightly independent. So I'm just going to run this backtest now. And the way you do this is you can copy this into, and this will appear. So I'm just going to pause this whilst this runs. Okay, so recapping, been gone for a little while. So it turns out the very simple method to try and be profitable wasn't profitable. So I've had to make several adjustments. So now what we're looking at is still Forex trade, still the Euro USD pair. It was using the estimated moving average, and that was just too laggy, and it didn't really generate much results. So I've gone for a few adjustments, basically using other data. I'll just scroll up so we can sort of recap what some of this was. I've probably been struggling for about 10-15 minutes and been running back tests. So the interesting thing what it does is it will analyze the results. What I targeted this time was I looked at the variance on a week by week basis, like how much does the pair usually move up or down, and this actually generated these sort of visuals for us to look at. It had multiple versions of these, which was pretty cool. What I'll be doing is I'll be adjusting the prompt so that it's a bit bit better. So you can see here the background tasks, which is Claude never fails to amaze me. And see, look, here it's generating these visuals as well. It looks to be the same, to be fair. So what we're doing now is we're doing the back test. We're looking at any ways that we can potentially optimize the algorithm or the rules that the trading bot goes by. So I'm just going to leave it running for a bit, and then we will see, hopefully, that it's almost ready to deploy. I thought this was useful. This was auto-generated by Python and Claude, and it just shows the results. So you can see here at the bottom the equity based on a £10,000 account, and it looks to be profitable in the long run. So now we're going to have to run the same test to go over a 2 to 3 year period and see if it's profitable. I'll catch you in a minute. Okay, so we're back, and it looks as though the verdict, the edge is real. Win rate consistently 57-62% across all periods. That's not much. That's a repeatable pattern. That's what Claude has said, not my words. And it actually says that we're ready to move this onto a live demo account. So let's proceed. Let's have a look if we can get the visuals as we did before as well. So this has taken me a lot longer than expected, partly due to my own mistake of not entering my own email addressing correctly, but also trying to streamline it with a sort of more straightforward strategy. And no surprise, really, the straightforward strategies don't tend to produce very good results. If they did, I think most people would be onto that already. So I've gone for something that I think is a little bit more unique. It might not generate, thousands of % return, but even if we can get a slight edge and we get 10-15% returns on more months than not, we should be winning. A really important part of this is the risk management features. It basically, with trading, what you'll find is half the battle is retaining capital, because if you lose 50% of your capital for a trading, you don't, in order to get back to where you were, you can't just add on 50%, you have to double the amount. So, if you've got 10 grand and you go down to 5, you have to try and double that 5 grand to get back to where you were. So having good risk management and identifying losing trades as soon as possible is very important. The benefit of a trading bot is it takes away the emotional side of things, because I've been in trades quite a few times and you think, oh, should I just cash out now because it's in the green? But then you limit your losses, and then sometimes you get scared or greedy, or you can get a range of emotions. But at least if you've got a robot making the decisions, you've got a strategy and you execute it, and you have to, it's important not after a few days, if you've got a couple of losses, not to give up on your trading strategy, but at the same time you have to be realistic and be prepared that it might be a losing bot, it might have a bug, it might execute a trade that you don't want it to, and you be prepared that you could lose all your money. It's not typically a get rich quick strategy, but it does enable you to, if you've got a really unique idea, then you think you've got an edge over the market. Actually, it's just asked me to set up a Telegram alert. So one of the things I had in my previous bots was a Telegram alert system. Basically, that was another API key, and it enabled Claude and the trades to send you notifications once a trade opened and was closed. It's a nice feature. If you want to do that, it is within the prompt, but for the purpose of this, I'm not too worried. So it's now to come back to me. So we've done phase 6 to run the bot each Monday morning. Check, okay, and I'm just going to ask, let's automate this and run. Difficult to talk and type at the same time. This strategy, it's more of a sort of a Monday to Friday strategy. What I'm going to do is I'm see if we can get a trade open based on the current strategy. so we can make sure that it's executing. It is Tuesday today, so it's starting to now. So let's just check back once it's finished. As you can see, this is always good to test to make sure you can actually execute a trade, because even though I've integrated about 16 bugs that I came across last time, Claude will just work too quickly and it will miss certain stuff. So always really important to use a demo account to make sure that these bugs won't affect your live trading. The chances are you'll probably get to live trading and you'll still notice bugs, but you'll ask, why hasn't it opened any trades? So be prepared to continue to execute. So this bot is actually running off my machine. The issue would be if the Wi-Fi cuts out, or I'm not in the office and my computer's down, it won't execute the trades. What you can do is there are companies where it's effectively like hosting a website. You're hosting your trading bot. It's not that expensive. It's a few quid a month and it can be running 24/7. So for this, I'm not going to bother integrating it, but you do have that there. If you're always on your computer, then you can always just check to make sure it's running. What it will do is in the folder you select on your Claude code, it will create all the documentation, and then you can ask Claude to check that the bot is running and to do like another scan to make sure it's all working okay. That's what I would recommend. So, okay, trade placed and confirmed. It says, let's have a look. So what has it done? Let's have a look. Okay. Yes, it's not a huge trade, but it is working. You can update position there. If you want to close it, you can override the bot. It's not an issue. So this should, in theory, be live until Friday, hopefully in the green. But again, I want to test this for a few weeks before I deploy it onto my main trading account. Let's have a look. Let's add it to the charts. There we go. Well, that'll help. Okay, so I've got all these indicators I don't probably need right now, but let's there we go. Yep, so we can see the position open. I hope that was useful. If you want a copy of the prompt I've used, I've actually made some tweaks to the prompt as we've been going through this, because this is the first time I've tested it. I wanted to test it live and raw so that you could see, difficulties and stuff that I probably would run into and you're going to run into as well. If in order to get a copy of the prompt, I would head over to our community, Finboard community, and you can message me. I'll put the link in the bio. Message me on here, sign up and message. It's free to sign up, and you can message me. You can join in the community, and we have lots of other useful things. So you can see here we've got our feed. We've also got you can rate your brokers, and you can join in on daily quizzes. See if you can win on the leaderboard, and we've also got some expert picks. So this is you can actually check out to see the Investor Centre's house portfolio. You need 100 equity, and you get that by completing quizzes, joining in conversations. It's quite easy to get to. It doesn't take long. You can get there in probably 10-15 minutes, to be fair. But you've also got some of the top investors that you can copy their portfolio. So there's some interesting features. It'd be great if you join in, and message me if you want a copy of the prompts. Hope that's useful. Thank you. Bye.